Thank you so much, Diane. Thanks to Gary for welcoming me to what is a privileged audience to be associated with. I am enormously impressed by you. This is a quote from a book by a wonderful woman writer named Toni Cade Barbera. And this is the first line in this book. The book is called The Salt Eaters. And the very first words you open this novel up, and it says, "Are you sure, sweetheart, that you want to be well?" I like to caution folks, that's all. No sense in us wasting each other's time, sweetheart. And the point that she makes throughout this novel of healing and health is that there are implications to this business, this process of restoring health. There are accountabilities that are involved, both for the caregiver and the individual. And so if we're going to be in this, we had better be very serious. And why I'm so pleased to be with you is because you are very serious people. Your work is concerned with larger purposes and transcendent values. You are at the epicenter of what it means to be a civilization, and especially because of the very special nature of your work, at the very epicenter of what it means to be involved in a democratic civilization. Whether or not the people who share our time and space shall live or prematurely die, and the quality of that survival is the essence of what it means to be in a civilization. And when you are concerned with whether all of the people who share our time and space shall live or prematurely die, and the quality of all of their survival, now you're talking about the essence of what a democracy is about. If it were not for you, what kind of a nation would we have? If it were not for you, what kind of a Georgia would we have? I doubt you get very much applause, but I'm happy to let you know that I care and appreciate very much who and what you are. This is an incredible time. It is a time of evolution. Our health system is volatile, and it is clearly unstable. You could decide to quit there and be sad. We can all be angry and get, moping around. Or you could look at it as a time of opportunity, with risks and opportunities to be embraced. I will tell you this, everywhere I go, and I get to go in front of every kind of audience imaginable, everybody is pissed off. Nobody feels good, okay? So, my daughter is an English PhD kind of kid, and she reads all these complicated books, and I tried to read stuff with her, but I never really understood any of it. You didn't recognize that the candle burning on the window on page 48 was the meaning of life. Damn, I didn't get it, baby, I'm sorry. But she was reading one book that I did know about, and I decided to reread it. And it was a book called The Plague by Camus. You may remember it from college. Some of you had to read it. And it was about the bubonic plague. Well, there was this doc in the book, the central character, and all he had to do was he kept going in all these dark and dank and dungeonous places filled with rats running every gosh which way, and people had all these horrible abscesses and buboes, and he had to lance them, and pus and filth is, I know you're eating. Pus and filth is everywhere, and it's horrible. Can you imagine the doc going, you know what? Being a doc in this town is a little bit inconvenient. When y'all get these rats together, call me. I'll be back. See you later. We chose this work, didn't we? This is our calling. This is our calling. So everything I'm going to put up here, and I'm going to go real fast with a lot of stuff. I'm going to throw a lot at you in a real short period of time, and it's going to be opportunities, and it's challenges, and it's volatile. At the end of the day, we chose this work because of what it means. And we're not afraid and we're not intimidated by the challenges and the opportunities. The number one challenge, of course, is this cost escalation. And we really do need to be aware that the cost escalation is absolutely determinate. What is so frustrating is when you look at this chart on healthcare spending per capita on the horizontal axis and life expectancy on the vertical axis, the United States is way out there. Much lower life expectancy at humongous levels of cost. And there has to be a reshifting. There must be a reshifting of how we use our assets. This is a messy conversation, a complex conversation. But America is clearly now aware of these numbers and is frustrated by this reality, and it wants a change. This is a slide of the metro system in the Washington, D.C. metro area. And babies born to mothers in Montgomery, Arlington, and Fairfax counties live 6 to 7 years longer than babies born where did I go? Oh, thank you. We don't want to show that Tuckson guy. We want to show this. But babies born just a few subway stops away. That is enormously frustrating, isn't it? And we see these disparities, whether it is in rural or urban America, far too often. This slide is a sense of where all that cost is going and why things are so concerning. On the left is physician and directed hospital care up until a couple of years ago. And look at the top two curves. The top two curves is physician and hospital-directed care. The rest of it is durable medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, very important things, long-term care. But at the end of the day, the action is in the top two curves. Look at the slope of that curve. Look how rapidly and intense our armamentarium under the control of what physicians do and hospitals deliver. It is mind-boggling. On the right, that chart basically predicts out that if you had to go out to 2017, that you would get to $4.3 trillion of healthcare expenditures. You know and I know there's no way that our nation is going to spend $4.3 trillion. We're already freaking out at $2.5 trillion, right? We're not going to double that. So the point being, there's going to be change obviously occurring. If it wasn't just for that part of it, what is particularly of interest is what happens to public insurance. This is a famous, whenever you hear policy people talk about we have to bend the cost curve, bend the cost curve, they're referring to this chart by the Congressional Budget Office back when President Bush, the younger, was president. And he said to everybody, and I just moved to Atlanta. I can't get my southern thing together, but if I could do a Texas twang, you know. But he said, you know, ladies and gentlemen, we got a Social Security problem here in America. It's the best I can do. I'm working it. I'll get it done, don't worry. And the budget office said, dude, you don't, well, no, actually, they don't call the president dude, but they probably said, Mr. President, you don't have a Social Security problem, you got a Medicaid and Medicare problem. Look at the slope of that curve. Something has to be done to hammer that thing down. And that's what you're seeing played out today in the news. You're seeing a fight about tax increases because we need to find a way to fund that Medicaid and Medicare problem. You're seeing people arguing about entitlements. This is going to be a vicious conversation. But what you're also seeing is all that stuff about the sustainable growth rate formula for physicians and how we're going to pay them, what hospitals are going to get, obviously because no one, especially the federal government, can afford it. But if you think it's just them, it's also what happens at the state level. This is the relationship now between Medicaid expenditures at the state level and funding for K through 12 education. Now, those of you that don't see well, and which one do you think is K through 12, and which one do you think is Medicaid? Do you understand what this healthcare cost escalation curve means? Every dime we spent on healthcare, we took it out of our kids' mouth for education. This is a frightening scenario. So the pressure is huge and extraordinary. So if you can't get the money from the feds, and you can't get it from the private purchasers, especially any private companies that have global competition, and you darn sure can't get the money from small business owners in America because they are totally freaked out by the cost of trying to run a business. And now we're talking about new elevations in minimum wage. So you know your small business people are going crazy. So your feds are crazy, your private companies are crazy, your small business people are crazy, your state is crazy. Where's the only other place you can go to get any more money for health care cost inflation? It's the average American's pocket. And this slide is showing you how much now is being spent by the average American out of pocket versus wages. The bottom curve is wages. Does anybody here believe that that wage line is really going to go up very much? So now it's the American patient who is at risk in a way that they have never been before for the escalations in health care costs. We've noticed a slowdown lately. The question is it going to be a permanent slowdown? People are asking that question. This is, again, the curve. The red is now we're seeing some diminishing and holding the line lately on costs. People think that the reason is probably because, in large measure, the recession. People do have much less discretionary income, and when people have much less discretionary income, they don't spend it on health. So you're seeing it as that. You're also seeing the slowdown because of what the private insurers who administer Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial are doing. And this is very much important for you. They're ramping up on all of the tools of medical management. Medical necessity review, hospital bed day management, readmission management, value-based technology assessment, value-based health benefits, performance assessment, pharmacy management, chronic disease care. Every tool in the toolbox is being thrown at how can we control these costs. And so this is determinant. The second thing, oh, and by the way, hospitals are now realizing that the game has changed. And so hospitals are planning for declines in admissions that will continue in the out years. And that is, of course, driving new relationships with accountable care organizations, patient-centered medical homes. We're seeing almost all of our primary care doctors being employed by hospitals today. A whole revolutionary shift in the connectivity now between the hospital and the outpatient environment, all based on new models of value-based delivery. The second big contextual change after cost is quality. In 2000, this was the landmark report that scared everyone to death. If you have not read it or you don't remember it, you should definitely go back and refresh your memory. That was the To Err is Human report, and it said that we were losing somewhere between 44 and 98,000 people every year in preventable medical errors. Really frightening. The year after that was the Quality Chasm report, which said that there is a humongous chasm between evidence-based clinical practice and the actual delivery of practice. We were having real significant, and then last year in 2012, this was all updated to tell us because of the quality problem, we were experiencing $750 billion in waste. Every stakeholder paying for health care goes crazy, obviously, over these numbers. And the question they ask is, who's in charge? Who's providing this care? Who's supposed to fix this? And what you now see is a lack of confidence, Gary, in whether or not there are going to be institutions that will get at this. Therefore, the purchasers feel like they've got to get at it. When I was introduced, they mentioned that I was the former senior vice president for professional standards of the AMA. I was the doc for the AMA. I was the doc for the AMA when that report came out that said that 48 to 98,000 people were being killed through medical errors. Do you know what we did when we heard the report? We challenged the numbers. The data must be wrong. Can't be. Besides, it's too big a spread. So my point being, what we didn't do as a profession, as an industry, was step up to the plate and say, we on this, we got this. No, it was the people paying for it that had to come in and make us get on this. And that's one of the geniuses about your organization, is because you care about this. And because you don't need somebody coming in and knocking on your door and saying, how much quality are you providing? What kind of value are delivering it? You're asking yourself these questions, and I commend you. If it wasn't bad enough for how we were using assets, we're now in the genomic revolution. And so now you've got the number of facts per decision. As we begin to move to ever higher complexity of genomic information, it makes healthcare really complicated. The challenge is human cognitive capacity, that red line, is stable, unless y'all got some new fish oil that I don't know about. Our brains are about where they were, right? So the question is how will we learn to learn? How will we learn to learn? And what will be the supports that we will have? Now take it for your patients. Do you remember Angelina Jolie? Angelina Jolie recently changed the world. She says, I'm going to have bilateral breast mastectomies, even though I'm a world-famous actress, because I have a family history of breast cancer, and I've just done a genomic analysis that says that there is a probability that I will have breast cancer in both breasts. Therefore, I'm going to take action. Did she have a test that said, you have it? No. She says, based on statistical probabilities combined with family history. Do you get it? How many of your patients have taken an advanced course in statistics? Right? How many of you have taken an advanced course in statistics? Are we prepared for these kinds of decisions in America today? Who is going to help your patients make these choices? Medicine is complex. Very difficult. And it will only get difficult as we start to have all these new innovations. I could have put a zillion things. We're now mapping the brain in a whole new way. That ear there is from a 3D printer. 3D printer making an ear, right? Robotics, information technology. It's all moving fast. Third context, a storm of preventable chronic illness. Watch this. This is so cool. Wow, love that slide. I made that. We've got this storm of preventable illness washing over a delivery system we already can't afford. Look at the incidence of chronic illness in America today. It is absolutely huge. People have not only one illness, but multiple illnesses. I do something that I'm very proud of. I'd like you to remember to write that down, americashealthrankings.org. Remember it in your head. I want you to go online, look it up. This is the annual health rankings. We do this every year. It's a tremendous activity. I love it. You'll find it relevant. I'm not seeing anybody write it down. I got to slow up. If you already know about it, that's good. The only reason why you're not writing it down because you already know or because you have a good memory. It's www.americashealthrankings.org. All the young people that work for me hate me to say www. because it makes me sound like an old fogey. I only say www. to give you time to get your pencil out so you can write down americashealthrankings.org. Look at where Georgia is. You can't be happy with that. And look at the outcomes, determinants of health, overall rank, diabetes, and so forth and so on. And you can find a ton of information about you and where you are compared to other states. Smoking today in the country, good news. 21.2% last year, this year down to 19.6%. And that is good news. Surgeon General, though, just came out, told us that 5.6 million children alive today will be dead prematurely from smoking-related diseases. And you see the e-cigarettes, I just threw that up there just to give you a sense of the pernicious nature of these marketers as they now use e-cigarettes as another way to get our kids. Ladies, I'm going to show you a slide right now. Please do not kill the messenger. And she said it. Oh, my God. Now, who do you think that thing is aimed at? All them young adolescent kids, boys, who now, and this is, I mean, can you believe this? And if those of you in the back with their eyes are failing them, it says blue e-cigarettes right on the place where you shouldn't be looking. Okay, so that's the nature of the advertising. Inactivity, couch potatoes. This is encouraging. Good news, we've got it down to 22.9, so 23%. Bad news, 23% of the American people get no exercise other than getting up and going to work. Obesity, no change, 27.6% of the population. It's very high, and it seems that it is stable. So the good news is it's the first year it didn't get worse. Bad news is everybody in America darn near is obese. So, you don't know what to say. All right. And then diabetes. And then again, that doesn't seem to have changed much either, and that's, again, good news. more Americans, and this is the drum roll, more Americans are living longer with cardiovascular disease will increase the cost while lowering quality of life. So the point is this: all the risk factors for heart disease are either getting worse or they suck, right? And the intensity of our medical armamentarium is that we will throw the kitchen sink at this. And the good news is, guess what? Cardiovascular death rates are down. Go America. We're kicking its butt. But it's going down because we're spending all the money in the universe to get it down. And we can't continue to do that. And so at the end of the day, it isn't possible to medicalize our way out of this problem. We have to turn off the spigot. And we got to do a lot of other things. Lastly, because you got all these, in terms of context, you got all these preventable chronic illnesses, which means a lot of people are sick that need a lot of care and medically necessary social support. This is a patient that I took care of, HIPAA-fied, of course, so I don't go to jail. You see the blood pressure cuff there. She had high blood pressure, not diagnosed, led to congestive heart failure. She had diabetes, not diagnosed early, leading to a peripheral neuropathy. That's why the wheelchair is there. We took care of her in the hospital. She had 4 different doctors, none of whom were connected by any information system. So she'd go to the clinic, the outpatient department, go see a specialist, nobody talking to each other, no sharing. At the end of the day, we tuned her up in the hospital, as we say, and discharged her to home. Now, this will sound familiar to all of you. We did not pay attention that the Meals on Wheels program, see the refrigerator with wheels? I did that. You try to figure out how to do Meals on Wheels, it's hard. The Meals on Wheels program was cut back in her community. The home health care aid program that transfers you from bed to chair was cut back. She's sitting in a chair or in the bed 20 hours a day. She's not eating. She gets catabolic. She gets an infection, a decubitus ulcer. It starts to break down. She can't fight off the infection. We told her to come back to the clinic 3 Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. The mobile van that carries wheelchairs doesn't run Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. She missed her appointment. Guess the next time we saw her? Ambulance in the emergency room, in sepsis and congestive heart failure. Ladies and gentlemen, what's the fastest rising part of the Medicare budget that's bankrupting our children's future? Readmissions to the hospital in 30 days for what? Congestive heart failure. This is the story, putting all the pieces together. You all who are doing this work out there with no help or little help, it's the interconnectedness that you understand that the rest of us. So solutions. Everyone is now focusing on this triple aim. I think it is a wonderful organizing ethic to help us to think about things. This triple aim is the sense of improving the health of the population, enhancing the patient's experience with care, quality, access, and reliability, and then lowering this per capita cost of care. So this is what folks are focused on. This guy's Don Berwick, used to be the head of CMS. But he got caught up in the political foolishness, and they didn't keep him on. But he's the one that sort of invented this concept, and it was a beautiful concept. So first and foremost, if we're going to fight this thing, we've got to fight it at the population level. Organizing our communities, using data. Please take the data from America's Health Rankings. Take the data from your county health department. We got a couple of wonderful county health people in the audience. 2 of them I see right here that are just beautiful people. Take their data, please, for where you are, marry it with state-level data, and get very specific about having a conversation about health in your environment. Community organizing is a key skill, and it's one that we in health generally don't respect. This is my teacher and mentor. She's sitting in the wheelchair there, Mrs. Lillian Mobley, when I was in South Central Los Angeles. You do not mess around in Watts without going through Miss Lillian Mobley. She's got no MD, no PhD, she ain't got no D. But she's in charge. And I had to learn that you don't go into the community with your white coat on and your stethoscope dripping out of your pocket, and we're gonna have a health fair. No, you're not, baby. Not today. Because nobody's coming unless Miss Lillian Mobley says we're coming to the health fair. So you learn. She kicked my hind parts for 2 years, coming up from the east Who's this dude coming in from the east into Watts and thinking he's going to do something? 2 years she kicked me, beat me up one side, down the other. Until I what? I proved trustworthy. Until my motives were examined every way you could in terms of my heart and where I was coming from as a person, until it was clear I wasn't trying to rip them off or abuse people or whatever the motivation is. No, you had to prove yourself to Ms. Mobley. And it's no quick fly in, fly out kind of deal. Either you're going to be here and you're going to stick and stay and got heart. And so that's the thing. And I had to learn that. And she taught me that. And then she taught me how to work with the community. Community organizing. She's the most important person that I could ever have met in the fight for health in that community. She needed to be deputized and respected and listened to. And you've got your own Lillian Mobleys in your community. The second thing is to bring in multiple people. When it comes to health, we're all in this together. There's no way not to be. So the private sector employers, they're spending a fortune on preventable hospitalizations. We all live in the same communities. You can't avoid it. Some people can have their gates that close. Guess what? Mosquitoes go through them gates. TB virus, slip right through, slide in. We're all the same. Who's cleaning their house anyway? We're all in this together. The Los Angeles Times asked me why they were closing all the health departments, health clinics in LA because they hadn't had any more money, right under the shadow of Hollywood, which never even noticed. And the newspaper reporter from the LA Times said, Dr. Tuckson, why should the average Los Angelino care? Why should all the normal people care about what happens in the poor people? The normal people, why should they even care? And that's when we said, look, we did the definitive study, and we proved without a shadow of doubt that the tuberculosis bacilli could squeeze through those iron bar gates. And who's taking care of your children? We're all in this together. So community planning that brings everybody to the table. This is an art form. Chamber of Commerce, we're going to have a golf tournament for the Little Sisters of the Saint Elsewhere. Terrific. How can you be against the Little Sisters of the Saint Elsewhere? But has the Little Sisters of the Saint Elsewhere golf tournament connected to the data-driven needs assessment of that community? You've got to have a different conversation that's focused on what's most important and recruiting all of these assets, respecting community resilience and the informal structure of community. All of it has got to be brought together. So we're doing this. I'm in these cities around the country learning a lot about how do you bring people together. We don't know nearly as much as we should about urban planning. The built environment is so important. I just took on an assignment, and I'm so excited by it. And this assignment is about, it's called, I didn't even think it made sense when they asked me would I take it on. I'm active with the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences. And they said, post-disaster recovery. Would you be like on the committee for post-disaster recovery for health? Would you chair it? And I thought about it. I said, wait a minute. What do I know about disasters? You tear up the streets, the houses fall down, all these terrible, and then you have to build it again. Can we put health as the fundamental agenda for the rebuilding? So that if you're going to rebuild the streets, you got to have a bike trail. If you're going to tear up the housing, you can create it so it's healthy housing, accessible with wheelchair, and da-da-da. So I took it on. So I'm in the middle of it. I'm telling you, this issue of how we deal with the built environment is an enormously important opportunity. But urban planning. So I urge you, connect with your universities, your colleges, and go over and visit the architecture people, the engineering people, and say, excuse me, I'm deputizing you as a health deputy. There's a whole bunch of people in these schools that need to be deputized in the fight. We're too much alone, aren't we, ladies and gentlemen? We're too much alone. We're holding the bag for everybody, and they're walking away because they didn't know that we needed who they are. There's a lot of skill sets that we need to have. This is one of the things that I'm struggling with now. This is this idea of these kids playing sports. A couple of those helmets with heads inside of them are my grandkids. And they live in a regular, blue-collar community outside of D.C. And I'm looking at how this thing works. These kids have an enormous sense of connectivity to other children, a sense of accountability. Now, I'm worried about this concussion thing. But I'm also looking at the guys with the baseball caps. The only time you ever see men that look like that is on TV, is when their hands are tied behind their back or their blood is flowing red down the city's concrete. You never get to see men that look like that as being stars. Yet all over this country, there are people that look like that are taking our kids in their place. I could put white faces underneath those baseball caps, but I'm trying to make a point around this disparities issue. You never see young black men looking involved and engaged. My kids lost the game. The coach made them all sit at the end of the game around a circle at the end of the game, and he stood and he made them all look at each other in a circle, and he said, "Bobby, stand up. Tell your colleagues what you could have done better to have had a different outcome." Woo! Johnny started crying. Johnny was crying and trying to talk about how he didn't work hard during practice that week. And then the next one had to stand up, and he's crying. What were they teaching? Accountability. Accountability for the decisions and choices you make at a young age. You know that's health, don't you? If you don't have that, you have no chance for health. So support those kind of programs is what I'm getting to. Now, we have to figure out what we're going to do with this concussion thing. Study ties diabetic crisis to dip in food budgets. Interesting. You would know this, wouldn't you? Poor people with diabetes are significantly more likely to go to the hospital for dangerously low blood sugar at the end of the month when food budgets are tight than at the beginning of a month. The connectivity. So this notion of food. Next issue, moving from community and population to individual. Patients are not homogeneous. They all, however, want to be listened to. People are different. The only way that they're the same is being able that they want to be engaged. And we've got to learn to engage. There's a whole new set of forces now. When I talk about deputizing, we are going to be having to deputize a whole nother skill set to be involved with us. This is the era of big data and analytics, new tools to assist in managing the health of individuals. So we now have data generators, people, the care delivery system, prevention and wellness. And so now we are able to take medical claims, lab, and pharmacy data and put it together and tell a story. This is Mrs. Jones, a 65-year-old African-American woman with congestive heart failure and diabetes. And that's a pretty good story you can tell. And you can find out whether she got the stuff. She did not get her mammogram. And you know it from your database. Now you can go out and send her a Hallmark card. Ms. Jones, you didn't get your mammogram. Call back and send another one. Ms. Jones, you still didn't get your mammogram. Now you have her phone number. You pick it up and you call her and you say, "Ms. Jones, you got to get your mammogram." And then she sent me a letter that said, you know, I didn't get my mammogram. Y'all told me to get it. You told me to get it. I finally did get it. The bad news is that I have cancer. The good news is we caught it in time. Thanks to God and the people that reached out to me, I'm going to survive. So it's a different day. Now we're adding health risk assessment, health screenings data, electronic medical record, health information exchange data, biometric device data, mobile health apps data, coaching engagement data, care management engagement data. There are a whole bunch of weird-looking people who speak only the language of regression analysis. Data geeks who only live in the basement of institutions, never allowed to see the light of day. There's this whole group of people that are now incorporated into health, who are helping the health system take all this weird data that was never meant to talk to each other, never meant to fit together, and are figuring out some kind of a grammar, a calculus, whereby it can all come together and tell a whole nother story. You're able now to analyze our data and, my term, liquefy it and drop it onto the delivery system. You drop it onto the delivery system and be able to use it to make choices on consumer apps and in doctor's offices. So when you're in the grocery store, it can start to say, "Don't touch that. You'll blow up." You don't want that. And then what's also happening, and this is the revolution that's happening by a new deputization of skill sets, is people are using it to run multiple variable testing techniques to identify preferred individual engagement strategies. How do we respond? We now know who we need to talk to. We now know what we need to talk to you about. I know I need to talk to Ms. Jones. I know I need to talk to you about your diabetes and congestive heart failure. Now the question is, how do I talk to you? How do you want to be talked to and reached? And people are different and respond to different triggers. So now we're in this weird space, this new era of wireless and broadband technologies. Wireless and broadband technologies that allow this ubiquitous access to the internet so that people like my mother can continue to send to an ever wider number of people an ever wider number of dirty jokes. My mother hates it when I blow the whistle on her, but she just keeps doing it. So, and I didn't know that all the seniors in the universe are online. And they used to tell me this is a young person's game, yet the seniors have taken it over. And they email each other all the time. So if I want to talk to my mother, I got to email. You got smartphones and personal digital devices, texting an ever-increasing array of apps. If I want to talk to my knucklehead son Lance, the only way to talk to my knucklehead son Lance is by texting him. I pick up the phone and call him, no answer. Pick up the phone, call him, no answer. Check the bill, I paid it, call him, no answer. And then one day, words came across my phone. I'd never seen words on my phone. I sent words back, words came back. I sent words, words came back. Pick up the phone and called him, no answer. Lance only likes yes, no, send money. As you can tell from my conversation, I need semicolons. Lots of them. I like nuance and subtlety. Lance, straightforward. So he wants to be talked to like that. Meet Sam. He's overwhelmed. 35-year-old cook, struggling with obesity since childhood. Takes a whole bunch of stuff, including antidepressants, and he's got back problems. I know I'm overweight, he says. I've always been this way, but I'm just not a joiner. I'm not going to the club and the group with everybody else. That's not who I am. I need something more personal. I know I should follow my doctor's advice, but I don't know what the heck she's talking about. And I'm scared to ask her questions because it's too complicated. And then finally, I know I'm supposed to get my stress test, but I'm a cook. I don't know how much it's going to cost me. How do I make a decision about spending money on that when I got all these other bills I'm sitting here at my Sunday table trying to figure out? So we give Sam, now the cook, a new app, and he's going to optimize me. Everybody's got theirs. I'm ready to lose weight, he says. And you make it a plan. And he makes his plan known to his boys, to his social network. So now he's got his posse knowing, I'm supposed to do this, and I'm going to have this. And everybody now can connect to it, and he can track it, and he can upload it to his Fitbit, so now it goes up to a database. So I did that too, and I'm a biker, and I ride. So I rode like 75 miles, and I was really, really happy. And I sent it to my boys, rode 75 miles, and they all wrote back, you suck. We rode 175. So I got back up and got on my bike and rode another 3. It was the best I could do. But at least, it kind of pushes you along. And so it turns out, guess what? Your social network is probably more important now in changing your behavior than your geographical network. So we have a whole new set of tools. So if you all are like deciding that just because you are doing, not-for-profit stuff, or you're in a lonely environment in rural Georgia, or you're an old-timer and you better learn it. You better get good at this. This is a whole nother, and if you can't learn it, deputize some people who are good and make them part of the health. Or you just go up to and say, you are now deputized in the fight for health. And you recruit your kids. And then so he says, Sam says, look, I ain't making that much progress. I don't know what's going on, but I need to talk to somebody. And so there are ways that he can connect to a coach. And he can talk to a coach, and he calls the coach up, and the coach said, I'm happy to talk to you about your exercise thing, but guess what? I'm looking at a database about you, and I noticed you didn't get your hemoglobin A1C3 check. So you now have the database connected, and the coach is prepared to talk about what you want to talk to, but then the coach is also saying, now I'm going to use this as a teachable moment. We've got to find all of those teachable moments and get those through, just like Mrs. Mobley taught me. In addition to the wireless broadband doing that stuff, it's also facilitating the social networking, which I talked about, and also advancing video and synchronous communication. The cameras on these phones are so good these days. They are so good that you can now connect them, of course, to the delivery system. And now there's almost no excuse not to have this conversation back and forth with doctors through video chat. The second thing that's happening in this revolution, after you get the broadband, is this revolution in sensor technology and data dissemination advancements. The largest source of data in the world today is sensor-based data. Digital smart Band-Aids, sending out a signal of your electronic system to a smartphone so the cardiologist doesn't have to have you in the intensive care unit. You can be someplace else, and the cardiologist can be on the golf course. Oops, gotta go. Running back to save you. remote blood pressure monitoring and sending that stuff in. That sounds pretty exciting. I like that. The only problem is doctors are getting scared to death because of all the avalanche of data coming their way. So somebody's going to have to be an intermediary to sort of make sense out of all this data. So you're going to see new data intermediaries as we try to have things like remote blood pressure monitoring. You're also going to, of course, have the wearable monitors, so you have all that data that gets assessed in. The next thing you're going to have is the new gaming technologies. I go around to kids, and I used to go around to kids all the time in the schools. You will get a dose of exercise. That's the way we talk to them. You must exercise. Ooh, I don't want to do that. But guess what? Now you got this these new Xbox Connect, and these kids, and look what they're doing. They're exercising or playing, with family. And they push the furniture back, and you just go ahead and play at home. Families, what? Being together. Connected together, having fun. Guess what? We did a study. Heart rate goes up just as much doing this stuff as if you were get a dose of exercise instead of playing. So we have these new opportunities. Here's the challenge. Here's what it all, and you've got also, by the way, I love that one. Then you've got all the new data that's personalized with the genomics. So here's what happens. You've got all of this happening in our healthcare system today. It's all swirling around. And the question will be, ultimately, how do we make sense out of this for human cognition? How does all this work out to actually lead to an outcome that makes sense? And so we've got new people trying to think about the science of human motivation. How do we get in your head? The fun part about this is, or the challenging is, almost all the people that I've sort of indicated as leaders of this are basing their work off of fairly middle class, upper middle class white men. So we've got a long way to go to get this to poor people and how they think, to people who are living in rural environments, people of color. But it's still very important work. This is what I mean by deputizing people outside of healthcare. So if you get a chance, just think about some of these and go read them. I mean, it'll make you think a little differently about how we talk to patients and how we sort of get into their heads. Here's what you begin to take if you sort of take all this knowledge, and I'm starting to try to glean from it. There's a very keen now focus on awareness, health beliefs. How likely is it that the person believes that they'll have a health event in the future? You know, you talk to a kid, you know they're bulletproof, right? Nothing's ever going to happen to me. So it's hard to talk to them about future things because they're immune. How confident is it that I have the ability to take an appropriate action? How likely is it my action will affect the outcomes? These are chains in the link to get you to where you want to go. And so learning and understanding how to have this conversation becomes very important. Then, okay, you've told me I got to learn to do something. Do I have any confidence that I can actually do it? How do I build this new skill? How do I get self-confidence? And by the way, would you stop asking me to do the whole thing from day one? Can I take some baby steps? Can you sort of get me going down the track so I can build some confidence? There's a whole bunch of people who are coming out of places like the airline fulfillment business. People that know how to run those airline, the airline clubs where you get the points, right? You get how many flights, you get 30,000. There's a psychology to that, right? That hooks you. Those people are now coming into healthcare. How can we then devise technology interventions to hook you on small steps and get you moving down the road? And then your social networks reinforcing, and then financial incentives, especially new value-based benefits. Value-based benefits, skin in the game. The fastest growing benefits in commercial insurance are basically benefits where the person has got skin in the game. Employers and other purchasers of care are saying, no more of this foolishness where you get to make any old damn decision you want on my dime. You're going to have to make right decisions about prevention and your care delivery system, and you're going to have your skin in the game just like we got our skin in the game. And so by the time you finish everything else, what's really moving the needle is putting money on the table, and that's really the thing that's pushing it. This is a wonderful perspective, though. Deborah Ness, president of the National Partnership for Women. Just read this real quickly. In this era of patient focused care, consumer engagement too often means getting people to do what we want them to do rather than asking them to tell us how we can help them to achieve their goals. We need to change the culture to work with consumers and ask the question, what can we do together to help them reach? And all those tools I was saying become new parts of the armamentarium. I wrote this. This is a terrific book. You ought to just, it's unbelievable. Just your jaw will drop. Just holding the book will make you crazy. That's actually pretty simplistic. The book is written because I wanted to get fancy, because I wanted everybody like in the health crowd to think I was so brilliant. And my editors kept going, Reed, you didn't write the book for these fancy dancy people. You wrote it for people, you know. So what does that word mean? You know, you two come down, make it simple. What I wanted to do was I used to meet people, I still do, all the time in airports. And why do I keep picking on you? I would go to airports and I'd meet people and I would just sit and talk to them about their health. And I'd say, you know, who are you? What are you doing? And what I hear all the time is just barriers, excuses. How come you can't get it done? So I wrote a book about, look at, the only value of the book is the title. It's called The Doctor in the Mirror. Hold up, take your hand and pretend it's a mirror. Look at your palm. Come on, don't be shy. Look inside and you'll see the best doctor you'll ever meet. After all, who knows you better than you, who cares more about you, who loves you more than you, and who makes more decisions every day that affects your health than you. You had better learn to be your best doctor. Well, do you know that, and I know that you find it surprising, most people still don't know that they can be in charge of their health? What? No, me? We take it for granted. Most people don't know that. They're still scaredy-fraidy. The doctor is the one in charge. I can't do anything unless the doctor says I can do it. As opposed to thinking that every day, 7 days a week, they have to be their own best doctor. So learning to think about people and taking charge is very important. So now all the black women here will beat me up, so I have to leave in a hurry. This is not a black woman-centric slide. It's a generic slide, but I'm using it as an example. So what were the barriers? So the barriers to healthcare I was in the barbershop in Minneapolis, in the inner city, where I was living until I moved here, and now I'm now a Georgian. And the men are on one side and the women on the other. And I noticed one day that the women were getting all this stuff done. Lots of stuff was going on. So I wanted to know what was happening. So I walked across the divide. The barbershop, a hush descended. Where is he going? No one has ever done this before. And I walked over and I said, what is going on here? And I said, how much does this cost? I was like, good God. And then I said, are you going to exercise when this is over? And she said, I'm holy roller. I'm not even jumping up in church on Sunday behind this. And it hit me, oh my Lord. It turns out that a significant number of African American women do not exercise regularly because caring for your hair is such a torturous process and an expensive process in terms of the looks they have that they just aren't going to do it. So they trade looking cool for sick as hell, which is a very weird thing. Now, by the way, every culture's got their thing, so let me be very clear. This is not, it may come as a surprise, but a black woman raised me, okay? You know what I'm saying? So if you want to know how I feel about black women, you know, all you have to think about my mama. So I'm telling you, this is said with love and affection. My point is women have their thing. So I got pissed off about this barrier. And so I went to in Atlanta, actually, there's a thing. Every year, 60,000 black cosmetologists and beauticians descend on Atlanta at the Bonner Brothers hair thing. And I created the second biggest prize winning and the most attended event. They wouldn't let me give more money than the main hair extravaganza for a exercise-friendly hair competition. And we did that, and now that's on the right is Regina Benjamin, Surgeon General. She was an honorary judge, and all these people. But it didn't, and it was actually a white guy that won the award, which is really cool. We're all in this together. But exercise, and so now we're celebrating exercise. You can look beautiful And still, we had one year, I didn't have it in this one because I couldn't have got her in the picture, the WNBA woman who's got the baddest hair game in the WNBA, she says. Now, she works out obviously every day, and she was an honorary judge, and she's like 6'5" as is, and when she came out on stage, she had on like heels. They were like, the woman, she wouldn't have been in the picture. It was really cool. She was amazing. I want you to go to my website, blatant self-promotion, but not for me. TucksonHealthConnections.com. You can remember that, right? Tucson Health Connections with an S. www.TucksonHealthConnections.com. And if you go there today or tomorrow, for the next few days anyway, there's a little red dot that talks about a contest, a creative writing contest that I decided to sponsor through all the black colleges and universities in the country. Just as my first year doing it, it's kind of fun. And if you click the little red thing, what you will see is our new, just announced last week, the winners of our contest. This came from my loving a quote by Toni Morrison in the book called Jazz. And she's got a character that says, she imagined a brightness that could be carried in her arms and distributed, if need be, into places as dark as the bottom of a well. She imagined a brightness that could be carried in her arms and distributed, if need be, into places as dark as the bottom of a well. And you all know the story. Why so dark? Because she was raped when she was 13, 15, 19. And now, like my sister, who's a health commissioner, I came around with my little brochure, just say no. We sow seeds in concrete and wonder why nothing grows. You can't just give this woman a brochure. You got to understand who this woman is. And so I asked our college students to become deputies in the fight for health, our creative writers, and said, you write some stories. So go online and read the poetry one is good, but the short story that won the $1,000, go read it. It'll make you cry. It's beautiful. It's just, again, that idea. You don't have to spend money. I would urge you, get your patients to write stories. Take out your microphone on your camera phone, on your iPhone, and just put and tell your people to tell stories, and then put it online on your clinic website. Let people talk to each other about the process of restoring, regaining health or preventing disease. You will hear such humanity. But the thing of it is when people talk to each other, it's very powerful. Deputize yourself for things. I got to end up really fast. Let me quickly change to the delivery system. Reimbursement change. Fundamental change in reimbursement. Now we're moving towards away from fee-for-service, and it's an inevitable, steady, inexorable, slow, painful death of fee-for-service. But it is moving and moving. So on the horizontal axis is you're seeing now this push from solo practitioners to integrated groups to fully capitated medical delivery systems, moving us ever more towards this consolidation. Marcus Welby is done for. No more Marcus. Some of y'all are too young to remember Marcus Welby, but that's okay. I don't have time because they're going to make me stop. On the vertical axis is moving from fee-for-service to bundled service, episode of illness payment, professional risk model, ultimately global cap, right? And so the stars are there to show that the journey will be very different in different places. There's no one size fits all. You'll see different permutations depending on local market size, local network providers, lots of different things. But the point being, reimbursement is now very different. And that's going to be different. So now you're getting value-based networks based on cost effectiveness and quality, and the sweet spot in yellow of high-performing networks. High-performing networks. This is going to be very irritating to many people in the delivery system because it is now saying, and why that happened is that purchasers of care, when I told you what the people that were paying the bill got pissed off about, poor quality and suboptimal waste and all that. So what they're saying now is it used to be that they would say, hey, we want broad networks. My employees should get to go wherever they need to go. And now they're going, cut the crap. I can't afford to be that generous. You only get to go to the best performers on quality and cost, if there's a choice. Now, you live in environments, many of you, where Gary teaches me this, a lot of you don't have competition. You're the only game in town. Even then, though, watch out. Don't get restive. But wherever there is a choice, there is going to be a drive to get you to better. Now, then urban America has really got to face this, where there's lots of options. But high-performing networks is going to be very key. It's going to be very controversial. Insurers are restrict, and you're going to see people arguing and screaming about it. It doesn't matter how much people argue and scream about it. This is inevitable. It has to happen. And so what you want to do is make sure you are in the sweet spot. And we're also going to see lots of different changes. Hospitals are buying practices. Insurers are buying ACOs. And now we're seeing nonprofit health centers are going into the for-profit insurance business. Everybody's shifting. This is an incredibly dynamic and volatile time. And so you're going to have to stay flexible. If you're going to have good quality measurement, you got to start with knowing what is quality. Our professional societies have now stood up to the plate, and they've initiated something called choosing wisely. And it took about 14 years after to err is human, but they finally said, you know, we actually are wasting a lot of stuff, aren't we? So some of us are cynical when we look at this, but of course I can turn that around and go, hey, at least the professional societies are in the game, and that's important. So they're determining now measures of appropriateness and other such things. But ultimately, you cannot escape the evaluation. And so here's which hospital for cardiovascular surgery is the best quality and the least expensive in the upper left quadrant, which on the right sucks and is expensive. And it is an amazing dispersal when you finally look at this thing. So now patients will have the ability to look at the costs and see the quality of the doc online in real time with pre-adjudicated claims. You'll be able to see now and are able to see the doc's quality star scores and how much it costs for them and how much it costs for the hospital, add it up together, and then determine how much they got to pay out of their pocket. Remember Sam the cook didn't know what it was going to cost him? Exactly to the penny if he uses Dr. X at Hospital Y for procedure Z, and now be able to know right off bat. By the way, what the ratings are telling us is really frustrating, and nobody's playing the game anymore about U.S. News and World Reports. Who cares? Expensive hospitals, strong reputations, but the evidence says they suck. Right? So now people are looking at it pretty carefully. I'm ending up now with the last thing. I'm going to skip this slide because I want to end up. The data is very important to help clinicians do a better job. Aggregating information, we practice in silos today. Everybody's operating independently. We now get health information exchanges moving forward, collect information, analyze it, liquefy it, drop it into the delivery system to help people through intelligent offices that can give us actionable intelligence so that you can really deal with the individual nature of the patient before us. And eventually you'll be able to have this moving forward that gives you an alert when the patient comes in, tells you what diagnostic procedures you're ordering that you shouldn't be, let you know what facilities you're using that are driving up your costs so your profile looks terrible, letting you understand how you can connect in with public health for prevention. But here's the real take home, which is the synergy between everything I've showed you. This is what I want you to think about what this means. Last year, 50% of last year's highest cost claimants spent less than $5,000 the year before. Think about what that means. The people who are getting ready to be sick, we don't know who they are, but they're coming. So when you see the office and you see the average doc's office, doc comes in, looks at the roster. Who's coming in today? Okay, cool. Get her in room 3, room 5, room 9. The real question that the doc should be asking, who ought be here, who isn't coming in? And now I need my advanced practice nurse to be calling that person up, and they should be seeing them while I take care of the sick ones. You understand? So it changes the dynamic, and now the incentives for value-based reimbursement and value-based health benefits become the same. And now what you finally complete the triad of where we're at is value-based technology assessments, because now all the new tools and toys have to prove value, and you line everything up. Pay attention to this hepatitis C drug problem. You all saw about this. You saw they got this new oral treatment for hepatitis C. It is extraordinary because it works. It's terrific. It's also extraordinary because it costs $86,000 for a 12-week cycle of therapy. Guess which purchaser of health care has the most hepatitis C patients in their insurance? Medicaid. So your governor is going, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? I already told you K through 12 is toast. Now you get hepatitis C. And so you can see the dilemma. And so that's where we sort of are these days. Last slide, and done, is the tool in the toolbox, is integrating primary care and public health. There is this renewed concern now to put together primary care and public health as an integrated whole. You notice folks don't talk to each other very often. They're two different systems. But now that you get to this new accountable care organization or patient-centered medical home, what you now have is this population health. So the medical people talk about population health. That's different than what y'all talk about in public health as population health. But now you have an incentive, because if I'm liable for the economics of the kid not doing well, I have a reason to want to have some upstream stuff. So can I reach out to public health? Maybe there actually is a team effort. So little Johnny can be taught well by the delivery system about how do you use the spirometer. And we can talk to mama, let's make sure Johnny uses the spirometer really well. And the hospital can extend their hours on the clinic side to make sure that we have the clinic open so that, on the ambulatory side, so Johnny doesn't have to use the emergency room every day, every time he gets into a problem. So everybody can work hard. But here's the real deal. How do we deal with the mold on the heating duct and the air conditioning system? So can't the health delivery system, the medical delivery system, partner with the public health people? And that's the new change that we're starting to see as an important opportunity, and I hope you will deal with it. Mrs. Jones needed a lot of stuff to come together. You now have a sensor in a pill, a little wafer that you can put in a pill. You can afford it. It's cheap. And it's biodegradable, and it's already been approved by the FDA as safe. You swallow the wafer in the pill, turns the pill into a battery. It beams out to your arm all the signals about that particular drug. Dose, brand, right, strength, and the time you took it, the whole deal. Everything you need to know about that thing. And then it beams this information to a little thing on your wrist, and you shoot that into the database in the cloud. It also has an accelerometer inside of it that tells you whether or not the person stood up or not. So now you know Mrs. Jones, your mama in Iowa, and you live in Atlanta, you now know Mom took her medicine, the time she took it. You know whether Mom got up and walked or not, or stayed sitting down. You have all this information. Think about the care management opportunities that are coming forward. It's a very bright, exciting world. Ladies and gentlemen, are you sure, sweetheart? You want to be well? I like to caution folks, that's all. No sense us wasting each other's time, sweetheart. What a wonderful moment to be in this business. It's hard. It's tough. It's challenging. It's difficult. It's ugly. It's asking you to be flexible and mobile and agile. It's making you get out of your comfort zone. But the only thing about our game that's different than everybody else's game is it's a matter of whether we shall live or whether we shall die, and the quality of that survival. Is there any better reason to get up in the morning and go to work? Thank y'all. Okay. Okay. Gary says we have a couple minutes she said, I got 5 minutes for a question before they beat me up and say that you got other things to do. But so anything, by the way, you get to disagree as well. I'd rather hear the disagreement in here than in the hallway. There's a person with a mic here. He's my new friend.
Well, can I hold it? Okay. Choice. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was excellent, mind-blowing, and a lot of information. I just wanted to ask if you could add some or expand on wellness as it means to wholeness for people as well, because there are a lot of different things that were not included about complementary or alternative medicine, which speaks to lowering people's blood pressure, meditation, yoga, qigong, tai chi, how people eating with juicing, as well as aromatherapy. There are a lot of natural things that are out there too. I just wanted to know if it could add a little bit and enhance it. Also, as we're speaking about all of the new technology, we need to just point out that there's an electromagnetic field, that radiation is being given off, and people need to know how to balance that as well. Thank you.
So it's a very challenging question, and so let's look at it very quickly from both ends of the spectrum. Personally, let me just disclose that I joined the board of a company that makes a nutraceutical for lowering cholesterol. So I'm interested, and I joined it because I'm interested in this whole issue. It's actually a krill oil, for fish oil, for lowering cholesterol. And I joined it because they were committed to trying to produce the data that allowed us to make more clear guidance for people about how to make choices about things like krill oil, fish oil, and so forth. So I need to declare that. I also will declare that because of my interest in this, I've agreed to, I now serve on the secretary of the head of NIH's advisory committee, and when I rotate off, I will rotate into the advisory committee of the complementary and alternative medicine portion of the NIH. And the reason that I'm saying those is I'm giving you a sense that I believe in this is important. I will also say to you, though, that given the economics of things, it all depends on who pays for it. If we think that you want it paid for by insurance or some third party, the evidence base of those things has got to ramp up to a whole nother level, because just like it's going to have to ramp up for everything. You know, the delivery system and the people that pay for care could care less about well-meaning words like holistic and da-da. What they're looking for is effect. Call it whatever you want. Telehealth, call it telehealth, call it holistic, call it this, call it alternative, call whatever you want. At the end of the day, does it work under what circumstances, for whom, and delivered by what mechanism? Other than that, because nobody has any more money to play games anymore with it. So it's the evidence. If we're talking to people about things that they will pay out of their pocket, like many of those mobile apps that I talk about, then you have a different business model that will be there. Finally, just to say, I believe very much in Tai Chi, and I've learned Tai Chi myself, and I definitely believe in meditation, and I try every day, and especially in the morning, to meditate, and I will absolutely tell you that it is a wonderful thing. Lastly, it's this whole idea, though, of reaching the whole person, which I think is key. So I love your question. I love it for the positive nature, but I'm also duty-bound to say to people, evidence, evidence, evidence.
I have a question about the medical home. You talk about its potential to lower costs and improve quality.
So this idea of the patient-centered medical home is basically came out of the pediatricians movement, and the pediatricians sort of created it, and unfortunately it's not going to work for them like it's going to work for everybody else, because the ultimate model of it is for primary care is to say that primary care practice will be what it was designed to be originally, is the coordinator of the holistic care experience for the individual. And they will make their money by saying to the purchasers, I will save you dollars from preventable emergency room visits, preventable hospitalizations, decreased lengths of stay, and decreased readmissions back to the hospital, increased use of rational specialists, and generic drug utilization. I will show you that I can get all of that done, save money, and then we in the primary care practice should enjoy the float, the savings of that, and that should come to our pocket in terms of a significant part of the savings, and the rest of the savings should go to lowering premiums for the consumer. That's what the model says. And by the way, it is the only way primary care will survive, because primary care doctors don't get paid diddly squat compared to specialist colleagues. And what that means is that because the cost curve was like it looks, no one is interested in writing more money for physician reimbursement. They're not going to do it. So the only way the primary care people can survive is by bringing the cost curve down and then getting that float. That's the model and why it's so important. And so I think it is going to be very important. And then you get the spiritual nature of it, because it actually is spiritual in terms of doing what primary care was supposed to do. So we think but there's a lot of work between now and then to prove the point. I got to go, maybe one more and then we'll stop. Okay.
For your energy and wisdom.
Thank you.
About 50% of the, or a high number, often is 50% of the visits to a doctor's visit have a mental health component that is unaddressed, and I hope you have some wisdom for how to fix that.
Well, thank you for that. So she's talking about how much stuff is not medically necessary that goes in there. That's why I really, really spent so much of the presentation on the prevention side, the community prevention and the individual prevention. And that's why I really, really wanted to push that. Number two, I think that's why you really have to be paying attention to this value-based health benefits. People go to the doc for a lot of reasons, but as long as there was somebody else paying the bill, they were more than happy to go. Once the person is involved in the game, then that starts to rationalize it out. And then finally what you get is this whole idea of these community-based infrastructure issues like not having a Meals on Wheels, home health care aides. So you've got to put that social fabric in and all that sort of together. So I think you're absolutely right. There are multiple ways in which we have to approach that, and it all comes together. I guess I better stop there. By the way, my friend, Marion is coming, right? So ask Marion, I know Marion Wright-Edelman really well, and I'm really one of her acolytes, as it were. If she does not read for you the poem, the prayer, O God of all children, ask her to recite it. I wanted to use it, but then I thought she might do it, so I don't want to, like get her mad at me. So when you see Marion Wright-Edelman, say, Dr. Tuckson said, would you please give us the prayer, O God of all children? Okay, would you do that for me? It will do you no harm.
Please join me in